Hello, Sun Up on 7 family. Welcome to our first conversation. Today we're joined by Chief Meteorologist Ronald to talk about the upcoming, well, it's the hurricane season already. So we're going to be talking about how do we get hurricane names, what do we expect for this hurricane season, and of course, how can you prepare yourselves at home? So it's going to be an interesting conversation. We see the weather out there, and of course, we have been so blessed that Belize hasn't been affected drastically by a hurricane in a couple of years, but you never know what to expect this season. So, Mr. Ronald, good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you here in our couch and to give us this update. So I'm sure all Belizeans are tuning in as well because hurricane season,
That everybody
we cannot
business.
run away from it, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, thank you, and it's good to be here.
Thank you. And so let's talk a little bit about, hurricanes. We're going to go into first how we name them because, I know Kevin will get that out of the way and then we talk about the preparation for, the ones we don't name now because we know Julia, they come now, we wait. And the reason I said that because my friend named Julia, one of the hurricanes, I named Julia. And she was like, I don't want to come for you guys. But how do we go about naming hurricanes every year?
Okay, there is a list of names that is already prepared, and those lists go out to 6 years. So currently, if you look at for example, the National Hurricane Center website, you will see that there are names for up to the year 2028. And so what happened is that we rotate those lists every 6 years. So the names that appear in 2022 will appear again in 6 years from now. But what happened is that if a hurricane is notorious, it was very strong, caused a lot of fatalities, did a lot of damage to a particular country, there's a committee whereby that country will propose that that name be retired from the list. And that same committee will nominate another name and vote on those names. So you will nominate probably 3-4 names, and there'll be a voting process on which name replaces a particular name.
That's so interesting because I was thinking myself, what if a big one could hit, I know they said Belize,
Right.
I said Jamaica, and then the same one, 6 years from now, hit somebody with that same name, you have to retire because then you'll have the same one double.
So then we also know it was last
sense.
year with a highly active hurricane season that they
Yeah.
had to use Greek alphabets and that kind of thing too. So when you run out of names, you have to...
You have to be innovative, man. You have to be innovative. I think what's super important is now not just understanding the names, but understanding, we're in that season. I always think about the fact that it's been super hot.
Yes.
So I feel like that breeding grounds when it comes to hurricanes, being able to be much more active. And so people are thinking, we just start hurricane season. We have until November.
Right. So you mentioned something very cool that important, that it's been really hot.
Yeah.
So given that that background, it's what's the purpose of hurricanes? Because hurricanes are naturally occurring and we cannot run away from it. It's part of the earth. But can you enlighten us on why do hurricanes occur?
Okay, hurricanes are actually a form of the earth balancing out the temperature between the tropics and the polar regions. So as we all know, the polar regions face sometimes away from the sun. They're cold, there's ice there. And in the tropics, the sun is almost always overhead, especially at midday.
Yeah.
So we get more heat. So it's naturally more hotter over the tropics. And there's what we call a temperature gradient, a difference of temperature between the polar regions and the tropics. And that is what generates tropical cyclones development. And it's sort of, if you notice, they typically head towards the north, they recurve towards the north, distributing heat across the globe, no?
Okay.
And since I'm saying that, how do they form? One of the main ingredients is for there to be very warm sea surface temperatures. That's actually the fuel, so to speak, that give these storms energy, right? And then, of course, you need certain conditions. You need a lot of moisture because you need those thunderstorms to develop. Mm-hmm. You cannot have what we call the strong wind shear. That is basically the difference between the winds at the lower levels of the atmosphere and the higher levels. Cannot be too different because then it would disrupt the thunderstorms from forming and there would not be that generation of energy over that one location and that low pressure developing and so on. So those are conditions that have to be certainly ripe for a hurricane to develop and intensify.
Right. So you've definitely been studying, what the conditions are. So what's the prediction for this hurricane season?
So I mentioned two conditions, sea surface temperatures, and I mentioned vertical wind shear.
Right.
The sea surface temperatures are actually warmer than normal over the Caribbean, the Atlantic Basin. So that's one favorable factor. And then the other factor is this wind shear, which is connected to whether you have an El Nino or La Nina. And those are terms that we use to describe how warm it is over the Pacific side. So in La Nina conditions, as we're having now,
Yeah.
weak La Nina conditions, it's cooler than normal on the Pacific side, so there are less storm there. And if there's less storm there, there's less vertical wind shear over us, which means that there is more potential for storms to develop. So we have two favorable factors already in this particular season that are indicating to us that it will be above normal.
Wow. So
Okay.
if anybody was thinking it, this is confirming that definitely it's possible that we can be able to not, I would say, be as blessed as we normally are every year. And so in that same regard, how should people start preparing? Because I know we know the tri-set would get one, but it's possibility within the realms where it's very favorable.
Yes.
So how can people start right now preparing? Because people are like, I don't want to prepare until I see something happen, until I put out on the flags and all these stuff. I don't really want to start prepare yet.
So a very important thing is for you to have a plan, even if it is not detailed, but you have an idea of what you're going to do in case we're threatened by a storm. You should know the house that you live in, whether it is in a vulnerable area. If you're on this coast, if you're living in a bungalow house, you should know that in case there's a storm surge, you will need to evacuate. Know where you will go if you need to evacuate, what shelter you would likely go to, and that type of thing. Also, the important thing is to have a plan in place for your family in case there's a need for you to evacuate. If you can afford insurance, we encourage you to get insurance because we always say safeguard life and property. Life is the most important one, but of course properties as well. So if you can afford insurance, it's good to do so. There are things that you can do to protect your property, like ensure that there's no debris that would be easy to fly about in the case of a hurricane. There's no tree that would probably fall upon your house and that type of thing. Or if you have a tree, you want to keep it, at least keep it trimmed, no? So
Right.
that you can avoid that type of damage to your house.
And so I think starting right now is like a plan that everybody
Yes.
needs to like come together. And we actually have been kind of telling people to put up on the documents and start thinking about maybe even the canned foods or whatever it is, like, because things are expensive. So one lick to go and try, go buy everything that you need, or have your
Yes.
batteries and your flashlight, all these different things. I think it's very important that we start piece now and just have it prepared instead of just like one time when we know it's coming, then you're rush crazy and don't know where the money will come from.
Yes.
And it becomes really crazy in that sense.
Certainly,
Definitely. Yeah.
indeed.
And I'm also thinking that one of the ways how people can also prepare and stay in tune with what's happening in the hurricane is by keeping updated with information, right? With what's happening in the region, what's the weather update, and hurricane updates as well. So where can people access information like that to be on top of their game with it?
Very good question, Kevin, and indeed, I'm glad that you brought it up. So we mentioned seasonal prediction, which gives us an idea of how many storms are expected across the Atlantic Basin for the particular season, but that does not tell us when a particular storm will form or where it will go. So it is important that persons stay in tune to the official information. Of course, the National Met Service is there. Our mandate is to monitor and keep the public informed of any particular threat that may come our way. So we advise persons to stay in tune to your radios, your television stations that broadcast official information coming from the National Met Service. And of course, we alert NEMO as well, which is our partner. It's within the same ministry as us, the Ministry of Sustainable Development, Climate Change and Disaster Risk Management. And of course, the different district emergency management organization, the city emergency management organization, CEMO. Those are official source of information that you should keep abreast of and know what is happening, where a threat is coming and so on. At the same time, I want to discourage people from focusing on official sources of information.
Oh, yes.
We do know that there is currently, the information is free.
Yeah.
And we cannot stop it. The internet is there, and the models that we look at are available on the internet for free. And persons are there looking at it. They are not professional, they are not experts, but they can see what's happening in the models. And one of the things that occur is that I always say, a forecast model is sort of an estimate of what's going to happen in the future. And the longer in time you go, the more inaccurate it becomes. There's more uncertainty. So oftentimes, your model will develop a storm, a potentially major hurricane, within a 15-day time frame.
Okay.
But certainly, at the National Met Service, we will not alert the public onto that because we know that it is unlikely, or it could occur, but there's a lot of time to look at it. There's a lot of uncertainty within it. But nowadays, with everything available on the internet, we
And
have
the
seen
apps
where
and
people are
everything.
sharing
And goes
that type of thing on
everybody.
Facebook and creating panic and that type of thing. So we encourage persons to listen to the official information. And of course, we don't want to get what they call the cry wolf syndrome, no? Where people hear, oh, a storm is coming because they're hearing it from different sources and then nothing happens. And when it's really happening, then they no longer believe it.
Right.
They have a lot of doubt. So
Yes.
And that would be a
Or
scary thing.
one thing that also happens that people go and they rush and they buy everything and then there's no hurricane and then they eat everything. But when the hurricane comes, it's like, where's the food? I already ate
Wow.
my punch.
But it's really important, I think, again, that you follow the official, the different sites that have the information, because next thing you know, you go on and stressed out. And then the thing is, I find that bad news spreads so fast.
indeed.
And so you find everybody to tell everybody, you see this hurricane, then they go and alert you guys, and it's a whole mess of a thing. And so I think also, especially now that we know that it's a possibility that we could be getting a hurricane this year, we need to be mindful of where we're getting our information, preparing ourselves mentally, and just preparing ourselves physically as well with our families.
Indeed.
Right.
So as we're closing off this segment, is there any final words you want to let viewers know at home? Anything that you want to talk about when it comes to the mental aspect of preparing yourself? Because we talked a little bit about the physical aspect, or if there any place where they can be able to access more resources of what to do to prepare themselves, physically. Anything that you want to give to the people out there?
Well, I want to close off by certainly reminding the residents to be prepared. Like we always mentioned, there are certain things that you can do, and you brought up a very important point. Don't wait until the hurricane is threatening us for you to stock up on whatever essentials you may need. You could always be storing it. At least we know that it's tough economic times, things are expensive.
Yeah.
But certainly, if you can afford at least to put away maybe a can of something now and again to have your stock there in case you need to go to a shelter or there is a lack of goods at the time that you need to make that last minute preparation. So certainly prepare one time, and again, repeating the very important point that please focus on the official information. Do not pay attention to rumors. And we do discourage persons from sharing information that is unofficial because, again, it's creating a lot of unnecessary panic. Persons are calling us sometimes telling us the hurricane is going to make landfall and you guys are not saying anything. So we certainly want people to listen to official information. One last point I want to make is in terms of the prediction of these tropical systems. There has been tremendous improvement in predicting the path or where a hurricane will make landfall. So certainly when you see that cone of what we call the predictability cone or the cone of uncertainty associated with the path, it is more likely that the system will go in that direction. However, one of the things that we still have some challenges with is forecasting the intensification. So we do have storms that do rapidly intensify and become a major hurricane without much warning. So that's one of the challenges that we face at the time. But overall, the forecasting models have improved over the years, and people can rely on the information coming from the official sources.
I think on that same, I just would ask if sometimes you can't rely or sometimes the magnitude of that hurricane sometimes can change in our drift. Would you say for people to just prepare for the worst just in case?
Certainly. Again, listen to the official information, but of course be prepared. So I wouldn't say always prepare for the worst because sometimes the worst could be very extreme.
Let's
but
not
certainly
underestimate these
yes,
hurricanes.
don't underestimate it, and there is a little threshold that you should be focusing on, no? In terms of.
So I just want to thank you so much, Mr. Ronald, for being
Yes,
here, for giving us
thank you.
all this great information. People, some key points to remember. Pay attention to the official information. Let us share unofficial information. You know, start with whole panic, with frenzy, people that can't handle themselves. People must start by part of the paper. Yeah, be a horrible mix. But we really need to be mindful of what we're listening to, what we're paying our attention to, as well as peace, guys. We know there are some financial constraints happening right now. Let's prepare slowly along the line, get our documents in order, prepare our households and all these different things. But it's hurricane season and we need to make sure that we are ready for whatever comes. So with that, we go to our next commercial break. And when we're back, we're going to be talking about Oceans Day with Nicole Craig. So guys, it's World Ocean Day and we want to be able to go on with a splash. So stay tuned for the exciting conversation and a little demonstration because some birdie told me she had to sing. So performance on Big Wednesday, something spicy for you guys to make sure to get through the hump day. All that and a bag of chips, guys. So stay tuned for that exciting conversation. We'll be right back.